Hello, dear students. The only thing which I like is that all my students should always smile. And for that, we have introduced a very short overview of the entire chapter. But that's not all. We will give you study notes, comprehensive, detailed analysis of the chapters as per the ICSE curriculum. Yes, there would be mock test. We will cover everything. And yes, when you fall in love, the learning becomes magical. We definitely know how to create the magic and just get ready for the magic. I love you all. Bajrang Kumar Garg, founder, Gen Z EdTech. Keep smiling.
All right, so today we're tackling a huge story, how a massive subcontinent full of different kingdoms, languages, and cultures, all living under foreign rule, started to think of itself as one single nation. We're talking about the making of the Indian national movement, from the 1870s all the way to 1947.
It really all boils down to this one big question, right? How on earth does a place so diverse, with so many different peoples, suddenly start to see itself as a single unit, as one nation? That's really the heart of what we're going to unpack today.
Well, it all started with an idea. A really simple but incredibly powerful and revolutionary idea. A new kind of consciousness began to bubble up, and it was centered on this one thought: that the land of India belonged to the people of India, not to anyone else.
So, how did this all come about? We're going to break it down. We'll start with the shared problems that planted the seeds of unrest. Then we'll look at the intellectual awakening that gave people new goals. We'll explore the strange paradox of the British Empire's own tools, see how the press played a huge role, and finally, wrap up with how all of this forged a brand new identity. First up, the seeds of unrest. Before you can have a shared dream for the future, you first kind of need to have a shared problem, a shared experience of hardship. The revolt of 1857 was a massive wake-up call. Now, it didn't succeed, but in its failure, it taught an absolutely critical lesson that spread across the subcontinent. If you were going to challenge the British Empire, the only way forward was together. A unified collective effort was essential.
And a huge, huge part of that shared pain, it came down to money, to what we call economic exploitation. The British strategy was pretty straightforward. Treat India like a giant mine for raw materials to fuel their own factories back home. And this policy just systematically took apart the local economy.
And make no mistake, this wasn't random. It was a system. First, British traders moved in and established total control. Then, they started draining the country of its natural resources. The knock-on effect? India's own incredible local industries and handicrafts began to collapse. And to top it all off, ridiculously high taxes crushed farmers and workers, leaving millions in poverty.
But it wasn't just about the economy. At the same time, the British were taking over politically, dismantling the power of local rulers, the Nawabs and the princes. This created this deep resentment that wasn't just felt by the common person, but by the traditional ruling classes too.
Okay, so you've got a whole lot of angry, frustrated people. But that alone doesn't build a nation, right? You need ideas, you need a vision. So let's move on and see how a massive intellectual awakening started to provide just that. Thinkers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and Swami Vivekananda were absolutely pivotal here. They sparked this incredible religious and cultural renaissance. They got people to look back at India's amazing, rich history, and this created a whole new sense of pride. And that pride, it became a powerful foundation for nationalism. And at the same time, a totally different kind of awakening was happening, all thanks to the spread of modern education. For the very first time, people in India were being introduced on a wide scale to these powerful Western ideas, concepts like democracy, liberty, and equality. I mean, can you imagine hearing about the American and French revolutions for the first time? It was incredibly inspiring. And here's the real irony. The British introduced education system gave educated Indians a common language, English, which allowed them to connect with people from totally different parts of the country and discuss these revolutionary new ideas. And that leads us to one of the greatest ironies in this entire story, what we're calling the Empire's paradox. It's this fascinating twist where the very tools the British built to control India ended up helping to unite it. I mean, think about it like this. The British built all this infrastructure for one reason: to get resources out and troops in, faster and more efficiently. Total control. But the unintended result? It was a game changer. It connected the Indian people in a way that had never, ever been possible before.
So what were these tools? Well, you had a single legal system for pretty much everyone, which was new, and then you had these incredible technologies, railways that crisscrossed the entire country, telegraph lines that allowed for instant communication, and a postal system that let ideas travel far and wide.
And this is where it gets really powerful. It's about the human impact. For the first time ever, someone from Bengal could easily travel to Madras, meet someone there, and in that conversation realize, wow, we are facing the exact same problems. We want the exact same thing, that thing being freedom.
So people are connected, and they've got these new, exciting ideas. Now what? How do you get the word out? How do you spread the message? Well, that's where the power of the press comes in.
This is when newspapers like the Amrita Bazar Patrika just exploded onto the scene. They became the voice of this new nationalist movement. They were fearless. They called out government policies, they exposed the economic damage being done, and they spread these ideas of patriotism and unity to thousands and thousands of readers.
But let's be real. English was only reaching a small, educated elite. If you wanted to build a true mass movement, you had to speak to people in their own languages. So this push to develop nationalist writing in Hindi, Bengali, Malayalam, and so many other local languages was absolutely key to getting the message out to the entire country.
So let's bring it all together. How did all these different streams, the shared hardship, the new ideas, the new technology, and the media, how did they all converge to forge a single national identity?
You can almost think of it like a recipe. You've got these key ingredients, right? The economic hardship created that common ground of discontent. The intellectual awakening provided the vision, the big ideas. The British infrastructure physically connected everyone. And the press? Well, the press was like the nervous system, spreading that message of unity absolutely everywhere. So you see, it was never just one thing. It was this powerful cocktail of economic pain, political anger, a renewal of cultural pride, and brand new ways to connect and communicate. All of these forces came together, and they transformed what was once just a collection of territories into a powerful, undeniable idea, the Indian nation.
And it all came back to that one simple, unifying belief that had been growing for decades. An idea that was once radical, but was now the engine driving a massive movement, that India belonged to the Indians. And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. So much of this identity was forged by standing together against a common ruler. So it makes you wonder, once that opponent is gone, what holds the nation together? Can an identity that's born in opposition truly thrive in times of peace? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.